Okay, good evening. It's Ron. Go ahead and get started here. Uh, See if we have any questions or comments. Yesterday we had some questions. George started us off with a question, talking about energy, feminine energy, and that led us into some other things, looking at energy, feminine energy, and kind of getting a better explanation of that. And but any questions about anything that may have come to your attention in the last day or so? I know the convention starts tonight. I don't know if anybody's interested in anything like that, but well, I'm sure you're interested in it, but I'm interested in viewing it, I guess I should say. But that starts this evening, so later this evening. But any questions, anybody? Any comments or questions that you may have? Get us going. Okay. Um,
Ron, I have a question.
yes, ma'am. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Hey, everybody, this is Evelyn. Is Pastor on the phone? Because I would like for him to go back, reiterate on what he talked about when I had mentioned that I had asked the question, is the female the cornerstone? I just wanted a little more clarity on that, please.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. He is on. Thank you.
I didn't tell you to tell her I was on. Evelyn, when you say you want some more clarity on it, you're talking about the whole idea of it being the cornerstone, the female.
Yes, sir, please.
Okay. First of all, let's think about what is a cornerstone. What does a cornerstone do? The cornerstone, in euphemistically, but not in reality, not physically, but euphemistically, the cornerstone is what supports the building. But that's not, physical. That's not the physical thing that it actually does. The cornerstone has imprinted on it the people who were instrumental in constructing the building or bringing it to a place to be constructed. And behind the cornerstone is the history of the church or the building. Because most of the time we deal with them with Masonic lodges and churches. Behind it is a history and a capsule of that particular building, as well as any other historical connections between the people, the community, or the state with that building. So if you take that and you take that and you overlay it with femininity, what do you see there? You see that this is the stone that is the support of the whole building. But not only is it the support of the building, it is an imprint of every entity that had a part in bringing that building to fruition, which means in terms of feminine energy, every aspect of humanity, every aspect of this earth as well as the universe is written on that face of the cornerstone, meaning that it is a list of everything that this feminine energy stands for and everything that it has brought into existence. And behind that stone is a history of how everything came into fruition and how everything is supposed to work. It is a message or messages from those who were instrumental in bringing that bill into fruition. So the message that are in the capsule of the femininity is the message of how things are supposed to work, how things are supposed to be organized in an organized society, how things are supposed to, and what the expectations rather of those entities who are responsible for standing in these roles that will bring everything to a state of unicity or oneness. So femininity does all of that. Femininity guides us to understanding the history of our origin and everything that we are. It guides us to understanding the principles by which we should live. It guides us into an understanding as to our role that we must play in order for everything to function in an orderly manner. And if we overlay what I'm saying to what we are seeing currently in our society, that is exactly what's happening with the campaign of Kamala Harris. It is a spiritual campaign. And if you kept in your minds what was being said as I was talking, it should not be that difficult to see that in process or in progress right now during this journey that we are on. Does that help you, Evelyn, so far?
It does. And it makes sense what you're saying about it. So was that the Masons' intention?
No.
Or, okay. What was their purpose for doing that?
You had, in the Protestant church, you had Masons. In the Catholic church, you had the Knights of Columbus. And the Knights of Columbus protected the interests of the Catholic Church. And there was another group, I'm trying to think of the name of them. The Knights Templar. The Knights Templar was pretty much the mercenaries for the Catholic Church. The quote unquote Freemasons were a group of men, white men in particular, who gleaned from some of the writings in Kemet. They gleaned from it what they thought was an understanding of a group of men whose responsibility was to protect the community, but more importantly, to be in charge of the governing bodies for that particular community of state or nation. To the extent that today, if you are a Mason, regardless of whether you are African or European, if you go into a courtroom and know what signs to give, you will find favor in that courtroom. The same thing applies to governmental entities as well. So the whole idea of Masonry was about manipulation, control, and doing it from behind the scenes. In other words, everything out front is a puppet, and the Masons are controlling the strings of the puppets. Does that help you, Evelyn?
Yes. And does that cornerstone, by them doing that, does that put energy in that church? Everything is energy, right? So
yeah, that cornerstone comes from the stone that was rejected. Now, this is the ironic thing about it. You know, the scripture talk about Jesus was the stone that was rejected.
Right.
Okay, now this is the ironic thing about it. There is a book called Duncan's Rituals, and it is the book that is used by Masons, both African and European Masons. And you will not find Jesus' name mentioned in that book, even though it's predicated on, quote unquote, the church / Christianity. You will not find his name in that book. Every scripture that's used in that book is devoid of Jesus' name. It is actually not what people think it is. Never has been, and never will be. Does that help you?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes. Let me do this as a disclaimer. I was raised from a dead level to perpendicular and square by a lion's claw. I was a Mason. And when I started reading the origin of it and what they stood for, I demitted. In other words, I resigned. I walked away from it. I could have, well, I didn't demit, I had to walk away because you can demit and go back. I had no intentions of going back, so I did not demit. I simply resigned. I walked away from it totally. So I feel like it's important for me to let you know that because of what I'm sharing with you. This is not hearsay, this is experience, okay?
Okay. So only the brick mason was the one to lay the cornerstone? Because does
all
brick
of this-
mason have something to do with masonry?
Brick masons, yes, laid a cornerstone. Masonry came out of Kemet in fashioning the pyramids and the temples and other structures. That's where masonry came from. But masonry did not come from Kemet for the purposes that it is used for now. There was a time when you are truly, in some parts of the country, you had to be a mason to be a brick mason. And now let me talk about the positive parts of masonry. There was a town in Mound Bayou, Mississippi. And this town was established by escaped slaves. And when the Night Riders, because it wasn't a Klan then, when the Night Riders made attempts to destroy that town and kill everyone in it, they were always warned by the Masons. And there were signals that they gave passed along the way to the Masons. And when the trains were running through Mound Bayou, the men who were shoveling the coals to keep the engine running were enslaved, but some of them were Masons also. And what they did, they had a signal with the whistle on the train that they would use to let them know that white people were on their way, white men were on their way to attack them. And they were never able to destroy that town. They were never able to make any headway in that town. And when I went to Mound Bayou, when I was in college, the whole town was upset because someone had sold some land to a white lady. There was only one white person in that whole town. And it had been like that since slavery. So that the positivity of that masonry. Also in Texas, Masons were responsible for protecting communities that were that enslaved people lived in, the escaped slaves lived in. They were responsible for protecting those towns. In New Orleans, in Mississippi, there were bodies of Masons whose primary responsibility was to make sure that the people in the town were respected and protected and informed of what was about to happen to them. There is a story about a group of Masons who in New Orleans faced down hundreds of white men who had come into this community to destroy it. And the Masons stood up to them and they did not make a move to destroy that town. So there are stories in history where Masons served a purpose in the African community. However, that is not true of the Masons who were in the European communities. The Masons were established in this country because they got a charter. Prince Hall was an African in Massachusetts, I believe it was. And when Masonry got established in this country, Prince Hall went to England to get a charter from the King of England so that the Masonry would be officially, the rights rather, were officially granted for Africans to have lodges in this country of Freemasonry. Any questions, comments? I hope that helped you understand more in depth the plight of Masonry in the European community as well as the African community.
Pastor, that helped me out a lot. Seems as if the beginning that the Masons were doing what the police were supposed to do or supposed to do to serve and protect. So thank you. That's a lot of history. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
I think it is significant that you said in their text the word Jesus is not used. That says something. What does that say to you? They recognize that there's nothing religious about the organization, although that's the pretense of establishing it.
It spoke volumes to me because that was one of the reasons I walked away from it. Because they're always talking about Jesus at the cornerstone that was rejected, but he was never in their writings. And that was one of the reasons I walked away. The other reason I walked away is because after you become a third Mason, third to third degree Mason, third second degree Mason rather, the highest is third to third. But when you go into the Shriners, you cross the hot sand, the hot sands of the desert, meaning that you are walking into Islam. So it includes portions of Islam as well. The Shriners are based upon, a lot of what they do rather, is based upon Islam. And you can look at the symbols and tell that.
And that is because?
That is because the King of England allowed for Shriners to exist, and they wanted to include other people, other religions rather. See, this thing, that Mason, have you seen a Masonic ring? Any of you? I know all y'all hear me. Have any of you seen?
I have.
Yes, I've seen it.
Okay, that Masonic ring has a G on it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
That G does not stand for God. They will tell you that, but it does not stand for God. That G stands for geometry. That's what they got out of Kemet.
Wow.
The G stands for geometry. You have a square on it, and you have a compass. And all of those mean something. And all of that came out of Kemet.
Question.
Yes.
Question. What does why does it have geometry? What's the purpose of it having geometry on it?
Because the whole world was brought into existence by mathematics. And everything in the world functions mathematically. And the square talks about you being raised from a dead level to perpendicular to a square, to a point on the square. And that is the point where the square intersects. Compass
Okay, thanks.
measures the circumference of your heart.
Okay, thanks.
I will share this with you. I'm sure that there are some people who are from Greater Faith who were with me when this happened. I was teaching about Masonry and the reason that it was not a Christian organization. And my life was threatened because when you take the oath, you find out that if you reveal the secrets, you can be killed. And my life was threatened for doing it. And one of the people who knew me very well, I was very close to, told the man who could get the message back to those who threatened me, if you go after him, you better take an army because you're not going to be able to get him by yourself. I wouldn't advise you do that because he doesn't stand alone. And I made a public statement about what they had said about taking my life. And I opened myself up to that and said to them, if that's what you think you can do, come after me. So I want you to see that what I'm saying to you is not without danger, because they were very serious about what they were saying in regards to my sharing with everyone else what Masonry is about. And honestly, you can buy Tonkins Ritual at Barnes & Nobles. Probably can get it on Amazon, but you can read it, you won't know what it means. You have to have that experience before you know what it means. I believe the Creator allowed me to be in different places for such a time as this. It's just that simple. It's real funny because when I quit, we had a project going on, and they had asked each Mason to pay $100. And when I told them I was not coming back, they put the word out that I quit because I didn't have the $100 that they had required of each Mason. I thought that was hilarious.
It is.
And I thought and now I think it's very Trumpian, you know. That's stupid. But that's what was said about me. I didn't have the $100. Any other questions about that or anything else? Evelyn, Lamont, anyone else?
I was thinking, but wasn't the concept of Jesus rejected? I mean, that concept also has feminine and masculine energy. So was
Go ahead,
that
baby, I'm
not
sorry.
the part? So was that not the part that was rejected? That's just a question that just came to me, but yeah.
Well, first of all, it had nothing to do with feminine energy and the way that they were presenting it. Just like Jesus has nothing to do with feminine energy if you look at it from the scriptures. The idea of feminine energy being a deliverer, feminine energy being an authority that's capable of bringing change, none of that is in the scriptures in the way that that male authority is written into the scriptures. So the cornerstone, the stone that was rejected, had absolutely nothing to do with feminine energy, and I'm referencing the portion of scripture that mentions the stone that was rejected. Had nothing to do with it.
Thank you.
What we have to keep in mind is that when the Bible was written during the Middle Ages, there had to be continuity between the Old Testament and the New Testament. And that continuity existed when it talks about Jesus being the stone that was rejected, and it talks about the stone being rejected in Psalms. What you saying, Evelyn?
No, I was just saying that's the thought just came to me about the feminine and the masculine. But yeah, I hear you. Thank you.
The Eastern Star is the female version of Masonry, and every Eastern Star has to have a Mason as its covering, who goes to all of their meetings. That Mason in that meeting in some chapters can overrule what the Eastern Star have decided they wanted to do. Not all chapters, but in some of it, yes. I cannot remember what they call the man who sits in that position, but I have been in that position. I've done Masonic services, and I have sat in meetings with the Eastern Star. It's funny because when I went in, one of the things I said to Phoebe was, I didn't ask her. I said, "So when are you going to join the Eastern Star?" And she said, "Never." I said, "But the Eastern Star is this noble organization, blah, 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 blah." And she said, "Okay. Why do I have to join?" I left it alone because I was getting some resistance that I wasn't happy about. So I know when to say when, that's all. Any other questions, comments? Okay. I have always been the rebellious one who did not actually concern myself with whether I was going to live or die based on what I said or did. If you're not willing to die for anything, then you're not fit to live. That's how I believe. And I'll leave it at that. So there is something in your life you must be willing to give up for, something that you believe or hold dear enough to die for. And for me, it has always been the truth. I didn't realize it as being that, but it's always been the truth. In the beginning, it was for my people. As long as I can remember, I was always willing to give my life for my people, for African people. I never had any qualms with that at all. Now, was I going out there trying to die? No, I wasn't. But I knew that just like in the military, death is part of the job description. I knew that when I was out there, that death was part of the job description. And if that happened, it happened. And guess what? I died. I died to all those other things that I held dear to. And here I am being resurrected in truth, thing that I've been searching for quite some time. Any other questions or comments?
Good evening, Pastor Richard. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Speak up a little, George.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay, yeah. When you spoke about Psalms 118 about the stone that the builders rejected, I would like to read Psalms 118 verses 9 through 24, and I think that it has some relevance in terms of what you're speaking about. And in verse 19, it says, "Open to me the gates of righteousness. I will go into them and I will praise the Lord." It says, "This gate of the Lord into which the righteousness shall enter. I will praise thee, for thou hast heard me, and art become my salvation. It goes on to say that the stone which the builders refused is become the headstone of the corner. But this is the Lord's doing. It is marvelous in our eyes. And this is the scripture that we've heard a lot, but I think it's just pertinent today, that this is the day which the Lord hath made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. For some reason, I just felt led to read that, because I think, again, it resonates with me in terms of what you're speaking about and what we're hearing, in the macro. So I just wanted to share those scriptures, and I appreciate you letting me do that. I'm done.
Thank you. That's the scripture is read when a cornerstone is being laid at the Church of Lodge or some other building. The importance that Christians, in particular Masons, definitely put on the laying of a cornerstone. When we had the Association building remodeled in Gaffney, we were thinking about the Baptist Association. We had that building remodeled, and the moderator was upset with me because there were some things we disagreed on, and he would not have a cornerstone laid at that building because he knew my name would have to be on it, because I was the clerk when the remodeling took place. And it may be there now, but the last I knew, they never laid that cornerstone because he did not want my name on it. That's how vindictive Christians are. And that's how, I'm sorry, that's how vindictive Christian preachers can be. Let me put it that way. And that's how much credence or importance they laid to that stone, like it was going to hurt me or wipe my name out of history if he did not allow that to happen. Not realizing that I really didn't care, because
looking back on it,
Huh?
looking back on it, what would you, now that you know what you know, what would be the significance of it? What do you see? Is it a good thing that your name wasn't on it?
Of course, but
Looking
I
at
didn't
it
even care
personally?
then.
Huh?
Yeah, I didn't
Okay.
care then, and I didn't know what I know now. It meant nothing to me because I simply was questioning some other things that they were doing. And when they told me that, see, this is the thing, Ron. It doesn't matter to me if my name is not written in a history book or on a wall someplace. That doesn't matter. I mean, my God, I have interviews in the archives of Howard University radio station that I could pull at any point, and they would actually do them during African History Week. I don't care about stuff like that. I never have. To me, my attitude is the attitude that I am a never. No, I'm sorry. I am a what that dude name? Say Melchizedek. That's who I am. That's how I see myself. Where I came from doesn't matter. What I accomplished does not matter. The only thing that matters is that in my wake, righteousness appear. That's it. So you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. I know.
That has never mattered to me. That's why I'm a kingmaker. I'm not a king.
I think I got one more thing to say.
Mm-hmm.
What George just read, I saw beauty and balance. because it was talking about the cornerstone, the feminine, I get, yeah, the feminine energy. I saw beauty and balance in what he read. And that was Psalm 119,
118.
118.
Psalm 118.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
I'm starting at the 19th verse. And again, please understand, this was not about feminine nothing. You know, it wasn't. This is all masculine, and the land of a cornerstone is all masculine. It became the headstone of the building, meaning it became the support system for the building. It told the story of the building. That's what the cornerstone does. And I probably made some people uncomfortable or upset because I've talked about masonry as openly as I have, but I'm good with that. I can live with that. I can live with that. Any other questions or comments? Okay, Ron?
Okay. I mentioned something to Pastor a while back. Couple things. One, I'm really fascinated by the gaining glimpses of stuff in our reading that talk about numerology, right? And understanding that where did the gematria come from? Where did they get that from? As we uncover all this stuff we've seen in religion, that sort of became something that I chased down and or was chasing down. And so those lessons are very important, and I want to take a closer look at that. And one of the things I stumbled on earlier, was looking at the fact that the word math or mathematics come from Maat, and that intrigues me, and I want to kind of follow that a little bit more and look at that and understand it, because before, when we got these books and started looking and following the Kemetic spirituality, uh didn't know what I was looking for, but I see now that I see the becoming part of it, and it's not just something that you read or study. So I want to look at that, and maybe by next week, or maybe in sometime in the near future, we'll be able to kind of pinpoint some studies there and look at the mathematics of it, which I think is very important, because, as Pastor said, it had a lot to do with creation when he said that today. I saw that because I've read stuff that kind of supports that. So just want to put that out there in case somebody else has some research. I know George has a lot of stuff that he researches and looks at. So maybe we can gather a study on that and get a discussion going. In the meantime, something very important, Pastor and I were discussing, we were talking about beginning, and sometimes looking at the bigger and whole picture of things, it uncovers more than we thought we knew in the first place. And so talk about beginning to us, Pastor, and the role that Donald Trump plays in that, and where we are right now, and what's going on, and why this is necessary for that matter.
Okay. Most of you remember when we talked about the origin of the African 4 million years ago, when we talked about how humanity was brought into the earth through the womb of an African female. And we talked about that, And we walked from that point of existence through the Kushite kingdom, through the establishment of Kemet and the overthrow of Kemet, and then the subsequent march away from the east coast of Africa, away from northeastern Africa into the interior of Africa and the southern parts of it. And we talked about the kingdom of Mali and others that were established there, the Ghanaian kingdom, etc. And we were able to hopefully see a picture of how things evolved over a period of time and how we got to where we are right now. When we look at what's taking place right now, that the Project 2025 that they're talking about, that people are afraid of, is a toothless tiger. Ron and I were talking, and he said to me that he believed that the Creator is taking us back to the beginning. And I said that if you look at the Project 2025, you will see that those intentions written within in that book, those intentions were the principles that this country was founded upon. So what we concluded is that we are being taken back to the beginning. And as long as we kept going back to slavery, as long as we kept going back to emancipation, the emancipation of enslaved people, we never got to the beginnings of true European enslavement. We talked about being enslaved by Europeans, but we didn't talk about how this nation of thieves came into existence and the principle that established it. Well, when we look at the principles that established this country, you can check off large portions, if not all, of Project 2025. So the efforts that are being proposed is to carry the nation back to its original its original beginning. And with that effort, they sought to make it happen by putting Trump in office because he's too dumb to really understand that he was being used. And I'm not ashamed to say he don't. If you go tell the truth, you can't help but tell the truth. So what they did, they put that into in that project, and they were going to use him to bring it to fruition. So in essence, the universe has carried us to beginning, and the foundational principles of beginning have been rejected. Everyone who rejects Project 2025 rejects the foundation upon which this country was built. And they don't even realize it. The universe has allowed us to lay a spiritual foundation for this to happen. And what I see currently in regards to this rejection is a full-throttle rejection that no one could have brought into existence without the leadership of this country being projected, being placed in the hands of African feminine energy, which is represented by Kamala at this moment. And when we look at what is taking place, During the course of the week, there were 70,000 plus Republicans who came together on Zoom, not only to raise money, but also to endorse Kamala Harris. That's never been heard of, never been heard of before. This white men who did it, white women who did it, never before have we heard of any of that. King, what's that man's name? Kinzinger, the House of Representatives guy, Republican, is speaking at the convention, rejecting Project 2025. And every voice that's rejecting it are voices of power, of authority in this country that has been guided by those principles since the inception of this country. And now their voices are being raised to reject it. So if it is rejected, then something has to be put in its place. And what's being put in its place is democracy. True democracy. One Republican man said that democracy is rulership by a mob, is a mob rulership. That tells us that those who are projecting victory for the Republican Party is more than that. It is a reconstitution of the barbaric nature upon which this country was founded. With what's happening is, I sent a text to someone, and I said to them that the African is bringing democracy to America. And that's how I see it playing out. So when we talk about, there is absolutely nothing to be afraid of. Please understand that the fear was there, very strong. And the greatest fear was directed toward Project 2025. People were literally afraid of Donald Trump and what they perceived he was going to do. But I want you to consider this for a moment. It's been 4 weeks since Kamala became the head of the ticket. When she was named, and when she was placed in that position, the first 2 weeks, we saw something that was so different. They started talking about joy, and they started happiness. They were smiling. That meant that they had overridden the fear in this country. And the only ones now who are embracing fear are those who know that everything is changed, meaning that those who want a kleptocracy are the ones who are afraid of losing their power. And they are the ones who are in fear now. Prior to that, it was everyone else. So what we are indeed experiencing is a reestablishment of what was so in the beginning. And that is the guidance of African feminine energy for the whole world, as well as the principles of Mayat becoming the guiding force for humanity, without even saying it. Why do I say we are experiencing the establishment of African authority for the whole world? I believe that, well, I know. I've been shown some things, and one of the things that I've been shown is that this whole thing this whole country was designed to be long before Alexander went into Kemet. The creator, the plan of the creator was for the goddess to be in authority and set the stage for righteousness worldwide. But doing so, there had to be brought into existence a place where the worst of Europe could be centered or be brought. The worst of Europe populated America. They brought them from prison. They were rapists, robbers, whatever you want to call it. So they were so awful until they would go back to England and kidnap children. And some of them kidnapped children to be wives, some for servants. And that's where the word kidnap came from. The founders, the ones who landed on the coast of this country from England were riffraff. They were all kinds of criminals, especially Georgia and South Carolina. The others, meaning those who came over to establish the country, were well-read men, Thomas Jefferson, that crowd, Benjamin Franklin, all those kind of folks, that breed of folks or that group of people. So this was laid out because the creator had in mind a central location for the worst of the worst to be alongside the best of the best. One of the truths that I hold on to and have held on to in the scriptures, and I looked at it from the Aramaic, wherein I should have been looking at it from the principles of Kemet. The first shall be last, and the last shall be first. The superiority of Europeans was established in this country above everything else, and the brutality and barbaric nature of their presence has been historically logged. Enslavement brought into the mix a group of people who were to save this nation. In other words, to build this nation. If it had not been for the African, the conjurer coming into this nation, it would never have been established. So now that it is established, it is called the melting pot. Every group of people on the face of the earth is representative in this country. And this country is the most, and hear me well, and I will not bite my tongue, the most barbaric country ever established on earth. And in its belly are the most forgiving people that has ever inhabited the earth. And with those energies in the same place, the day has come for the energy of forgiveness, seeking righteousness for everyone, to overshadow the energy of barbarity, the energy of greed, the energy of everything that is antithetical to righteousness. And we are seeing the manifestation of the righteousness being established in this melting pot that is to be tipped over so it will spread throughout humanity. This is one of the messages I'm delivering to you that I hope you make notes of so you can check it off when you see it happening. This is what we meant without knowing it in 2011 when we said humanity will not end, not on our watch. This is what we meant and didn't know it. There are more ways to end humanity than simply humanity vanishing from the face of the earth. Humanity does not exist when you dehumanize humans. If all of us had bought into the European mindset and stayed there, humanity would be destroyed. And it would not be destroyed by a bomb. It would be destroyed, yet humans would be still on the earth living like animals. All of that has changed. And you mark my words, you're going to see European men and women, their mindsets shifting. You're going to experience a change in the African community where people are killing each other. On the fringes, you're going to still see the people who like Trump and those who are writing these racist, barbaric programs to be instituted. You have them, but they will have no authority. Right now, in this world, the people who are most frightened of this African woman, it is not Donald Trump. The people who are most frightened are, it is, you made me lose my thought.
People who are most frightened, it's not Donald Trump.
People who are most frightened are the billionaires. Because they know that they are losing their authority. They know that money is no longer power. People are the power. And that's the transformation that we are experiencing right now. Any questions or comments about that?
I thought what was interesting, you talked about two beginnings. You talked about beginning of the country and those who are rejecting this campaign, I guess, that Trump has in mind, are rejecting beginning of this country. That's interesting, without knowing it. And then you talked about the beginning of you know, taking it further back, looking at it from a spiritual perspective, and the African female being on the throne. Those two beginnings. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Lauren, go ahead.
Nothing. I was just going to say, I thought that was interesting. Those two beginnings coming head to head. And can you go into that a little bit more? Because I think that's very interesting.
Could I add something before? And
Oh, of course, yes.
the thing that I thought was that was so intriguing about what you said was that we would have true democracy. People think people don't even know what true democracy is. What
Right.
they think is democracy is what they thought the founding of the country was built on. You know, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men agree, blah, 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 blah. but they don't understand even then the spiritual underpinning of what you just said and what it means, not only for this country, but every single country on the earth. So even though they don't understand the fullness of the spiritual meaning, they are catching a whiff of enough to know that with the consciousness, the mentality of a Donald Trump energy, that it would be further away from their ideal of what democracy is, even though their ideal of democracy was based on 2025.
Yeah. The Constitution does not even declare this as a democracy. It says that this is a constitutional republic. However, the founders start talking about democracy as opposed to a republic because democracy speaks to rule by the people. And if I can convince you that you are living in a democracy, even though it is a constitutional republic, which is different than democracy, then I can control you. So the whole concept, Barbara, is that they have been speaking the energy of democracy while at the same time perpetuating a republic. So what am I saying? That is just like, Ron, what you said about the Constitution. They didn't know what they were right when they wrote the Constitution.
Yeah.
All men created equal.
Yeah.
That's a declaration. It doesn't matter whether you meant me to be an animal. It doesn't change what the universe say I am. So when you write that, you're talking about me too. Just
Yes.
like the democracy thing, you bringing it to fruition, but you don't even know how you're doing it. And when I said that Africans are bringing democracy to America, that's what I meant. Does that make sense, Barbara Jane?
Yes, sir.
And that's exactly what's happening. Because, okay, if this was intended to be a democracy from the beginning, then the House, the Congress in the states, the legislative body in the states are the bodies that chose the senators. They elected the senators who were going to represent their state. And I think it was the 19th Amendment, maybe around during the period of Woodrow Wilson, or anyway, I think it's the 19th Amendment, where all of this changed to where the senators were elected by the body of people, as opposed to continuously being elected by the state legislative bodies. Can you imagine what would happen if they were now elected by legislative bodies? Make a big difference. A big difference. When you look at a state like North Carolina, where the North Carolina state legislative body is overwhelmingly Republican. Yet on the statewide election, the governor is Democrat. How does that happen? Because of gerrymandering. So if the legislative body of North Carolina was doing that, then that would then we would not be where we are. One of the other things I want to share. Oh, Ron, I'm sorry, I forgot what you wanted to ask.
No, I just thought that was significant. We can come back to it. You talked about two different.
Okay, hold on to that for a second, okay?
Yeah.
Okay. This is what the plan was. The plan was for the people who count the votes, for them to withhold the count, withhold them from certification in a particular county, because the state can't certify until all certifications come in from the counties. And the objective was to hold on to enough votes so that Kamala and Donald has 270 electoral votes each. If they have 270 electoral votes each, then that means that the election is thrown into the House. And there are more Republican representatives in the House. I'm not talking about individuals. You vote by congressional districts when you're voting for the election. And there are more Republican congressional districts in the House than there are Democrats. So they would throw the election to Trump. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Hello? Yeah. So that would throw it to Trump. That's what the plan was. But I see something now. Did you hear Lindsey Graham say that Trump may lose?
No, I did not.
That's
Yes, I did.
when he said that. If you let me sit on in my little seat of political analyst. What I got from that is the Republicans have made a decision that they are not going through this thing anymore of an election being stolen. What Lindsey is saying is that if you lose, you lose. Now, do I believe that he gonna stick to that? Can I fly? No, I don't believe he gonna stick to it. But they're laying the foundation so that if these people hold these votes away from certification, that they will prosecute them because it's against federal law to do that. They will prosecute them. That's what he's saying. And he's not saying it because he loves Kamala Harris. He's saying it because they are trying to get from under the thumb of Donald Trump. But also he's saying it because he knows one thing, if he does not know anything else, there will not be a mob at the Capitol saying the election was stolen. Because there's an African man who is the Secretary of Defense. There's an African man who is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. African males are in charge of the military for this country, and there is a president who's not going to stand for it. So that's not going to happen. So now they're trying to find a way out of it because they know that what they have planned for the theft of this election is not going to work because the pieces have been put in place to make sure that it doesn't. And I will say this to you, but I would appreciate it if you don't say it to anyone else. And I'll tell you why when I finish. I believe that this is going to be a landslide. I don't talk about it publicly because if people think that it's going to be, they won't vote. So I say to them, it's not over till it's over. We still got work to do. We're the underdogs. And as long as we keep that mindset in people, they will show up. Now, any questions about what I just said? Do you understand how this government works in terms of counting the electoral votes and casting it into the House if they each have 270? Questions, comments? One.
I like the comment about the landslide thing. In fact, that you and I had that discussion. That's something I feel as well. I don't think this thing's going to be close. But I thought it was interesting when you talked about the beginnings. But like I say, you
Right.
talked about two different things there, and I like that, and I just wonder if you could reiterate that or just shed some more light on it.
Okay. You have one beginning that showed how mankind is supposed to interact with mankind. And that was during the genesis of the African and other people who came from the womb of the African. And then you had a beginning of a ruthless country that actually ascended to the place that it desired to be, and that is the most feared country on earth because of their quickness to battle and the deadly weapons that they have developed. So when you have a beginning, you can also see the end. What I mean by that, the beginning of the African being overran by the European showed that an end was to be. And that end was that at some point, the barbarian attitude, the barbarian nature would have to come to an end. And when we talked about not being on our watch, that end was in sight, but we didn't know what that end was looking like. So right now, we saw the beginning of this nation becoming the most ruthless nation without regard to human life, but would do anything for greed. Now we see the end, and the end is coming from the beginning. It is the energy of the African that's bringing this brutal mindset to an end. Does that make sense so far?
Yes.
It's bringing it to an end, but it's not bringing it to an end to destroy Europeans. No. It's bringing it to an end to enhance the mindset of all of humanity, inclusive of the European, even if it is Netanyahu who has overseen the murder of 40,000 plus people, changing his heart. It doesn't matter whether he gets punished for it in terms of electrocution or hanging or prison. That doesn't matter. What matters is that it ends, because you can hang him, but it's not going to bring those 40,000 people back. The death of the 40,000 people is the catalyst that pushes us to this place where we seek a change. And in seeking a change, minds open. And when minds open and we're putting things in the macro, then they are able to pick up on the energy that we're putting out there for change, and the energy of understanding truth without seeking revenge, without hating anyone, simply desiring to bring peace and harmony to the earth. Does that make sense? Ron, does that help?
It does. Thank you.
Anyone else? Barbara Jean, does that coincide with what you were saying?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any other questions or comments? Have no fear. We are who we were created to be.
Amen.
And that means that we are not peacemakers at all. We are the peace of the earth. That's why you have to have peace within, so you can be the peace that the earth is seeking.
Mm.
So I'm done unless there are questions or comments.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone.
Go ahead.
Hello,
Sure.
everyone. Yes. I was just thinking as you were talking, and a lot of times it is the wish of people that, in a sense, quote unquote, well, for us the creator, but for others, that God would just automatically make things right, in a sense. And through this entire process that is actually taking place, it is the thing that is transpiring and what we're doing cannot be forced upon others. As we put this in the macro, what is actually taking place is the heart of mankind is actually changing, and it's the heart of mankind that actually changes everything, you know, from a collective ultimately. So it is that we are at the spear, the point in terms of influencing and doing that within ourselves, make it easier and I guess in a sense inviting for others to catch on and do the same thing themselves. It is just the overarching thing in terms of, you know, just sitting here and listening to all the things we're talking about, the beginning and things like that, and just how that is transpiring. Because I know traditionally a lot of people and even ourselves have just been praying and hoping for some outside thing does it in a sense, or just makes things better. We are the ones who are infusing the earth and changing the earth from within, and ushering in others to do the same. I'm finished.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I like that.
So I have a question. So what we're doing, is this something that the ancestors have longed for?
I suppose that is true, that the ancestors are long for this day to come.
And I would
Power.
say, now that,
Say again?
I yield.
I was
Okay.
simply going to comment, Sheldon, the power of what you said relates to the fact that ego is nowhere involved in that at all.
Yeah.
It's coming from the basic principles of spirituality that were there from the beginning. And so we can say that without being concerned about, who am I to say that, or am I worthy? Yeah, ego has nothing to do with it. It's believing and understanding and knowing who we are. As Pastor just said, we are who we were created to be. That's all we are asked to be who you were created to be. And so there was power in what you just said. And for those who are listening, there is no ego. Thanks.
And well, to 2 points, and somebody remind me so I can get both of them, to Evelyn's question, and then to what you just said, Ms. Barbara, because you just brought up something else within me as well. Yes, and what we're doing in terms of they're saying that there is no ego, it is both soft and strong at the same exact time. Soft in the sense that it is not forceful in forcing anyone to do anything, just as, the traditional way that we brought up in how religion tries to manipulate and get someone to actually do something or convince them. This is more, much more pure, whereas allowing the person to literally come and do it on their own free will because they genuinely want to do it. And strong because, of course, just how unbelievably powerful that is. The Evelyn, to your question, not only has it been something that, in a sense, I can't remember the word you used, but yearn for. It is something that the ancestors, in a sense, constantly help to guide and support us in moment to moment as well. I'm done.
Two very good points, and to just another question is that I'm looking at this month just started, seemed like yesterday, and it's already the 19th. Is that an indicator for us that the way time is this year is really, really, just taking off on us here. It's almost gone yet. Is that a measurement for us? Is that something that we look at and comparably look at as to what's going on?
Say that again, Ron?
The way time is sped up, is that an indicator? Is that a measurement for us of some kind as to what we're doing or what's going on?
How many times have you and some of the rest of us said that it's sure taking a long time for this to happen?
Yeah,
So you got what you want now.
yeah.
It's
This,
sped up, right? Go
I
ahead.
think it speaks to the, I'm sorry.
No, Bobby Jane, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I think it speaks to the purity of intent. If the intent is truly, genuinely based in desire for humankind, for humanity, and you minimize ego, and you know, we already talked about this. A little ego is a good thing to have. That's not what I'm talking about. We minimize the distractions that come up. That things do happen just like that, and we will see them continue to happen like that as long as we continue to be sustained and upheld by and supported by the cornerstone of principles of Maya and the universe itself, the principles of loving kindness, all of that. And if that continues to be our main motive and our desire, I think we're going to even see things happen faster than that.
I agree. This is amazing. Okay. Anyone else? Questions or comments? Thank you, Ms. B. I appreciate that. What do you guys think? You want to pause it for tonight?
Yeah.
And I already look forward to next Saturday. So you guys have a great week. And thank you, everyone. Thanks for your energy. Thanks for your questions and comments. And again, if you have something, jot it down. The thing Pastor talked about, I think we'll surface again. We'll probably talk about that again because there's a lot of information in that. So, but anyway, have a great week and thanks again, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye-bye.